Everybody. Special good morning out to Benita and Jasmine. I gave Jasmine, did you get that that email I sent you about the Vegas nerve?
Yes, I did.
Did you read it?
Yes.
So just FYI, when Melissa has us doing those breathing, when she said, how'd you do it, Melissa, when you like that? So it's not necessarily it's the vibrations from the lips and from the breath that actually help stimulate the prefrontal cortex to shift gears. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay then. Okay. Because that's a really important fact, is that we can't talk to our nervous system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, first of all, I want to start this out differently this morning, Jasmine and Benita. I want to know, do you guys have any questions? And can you tell me a little bit why that you wanted to join this Emotional Sobriety Book Club?
I don't have any questions. I'm just really I'm happy that you brought this to my attention, because it's a big part of what's missing. And it's very informative. So I'm really looking forward to working in the workbook.
Benita,
And
Jasmine?
huh?
Hello, Jasmine?
Yeah, lost you guys. You guys froze up for a minute. What was the question?
So the question is, I wanted to know if, why did you decide to choose this book club to join? And do you have any questions?
I was logged on. I went to one of your webinars. I don't remember who put it on or anything, but everything you were sharing on like spoke to me, and then you recommended that book. So I went on Amazon and bought the book, and then also this book club came. It just, I don't know, I just feel like it just led me to what I needed. A lot of it spoke to me because I am a survivor of a lot, and I've been sober since July 3rd, 2018, and even though that being sober, you think everything would go away, right? Like you still wouldn't, but there's a lot of things that still happen within my family and where I live. But I've been able to maintain sobriety, but I feel like I've been holding my breath since around April, not fully. I kind of went where I'm disassociating myself with my body again, like things that should be making me cry haven't been making me cry. Like I'm shutting off my emotions. And so I feel like it just kind of came back. I'm feeling reconnected again, working with an elder, but I feel I feel like I'm supposed to be here within this group.
That was a powerful answer response, Jasmine. That kind of reminds me a little bit about me, even though, I've been in the program, been clean and sober for a long time, but you still have challenges, and mine comes in the cloak of my healthcare. So been there, done that, and ended up with liver cancer, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, irritable bowel syndrome, and leaky gut, and something else is another one, but I had to go through that gamut, and I grew up in an environment that wasn't healthy, in a household that wasn't healthy, and in a community that wasn't healthy. And it was because of systemic racism, in their policies and the social justice programs. Every fabric of that cloth that I mentioned, those three realms of ACEs was flawed, and they was actually flawed from the beginning. As I say this and as I recollect, and I look at this Emotional Sobriety book, I didn't have the attunement and attachment with my parents nor the information that was needed for me to even understand what emotional sobriety even really meant or is, even today, as you kind of sort of speak about it, because underneath this whole title of emotional sobriety, there's a whole nother relationship to that word, you know, and then you talk about trauma and resilience and balance, you know, and when you're struggling, trying to live as a people, and when you realize it and you come to it, when you come to this book, I don't know if you guys feel like this or not, but that's the reason why I sent you that link to the Paulo vagal theory about the vagus nerve, Jasmine, is because they didn't give us the information they should have gave us when we was young. Does that make sense to anybody?
I can definitely relate to that. Seems like I stopped growing at a certain period and didn't have any guidance. So emotionally, I'm immature.
Right. And you know the reason why that we didn't have that, because we didn't have parents.
Right.
You know, our parents didn't. We was born in America, but we never got a chance to be raised because the environment outside of the household was toxic. The community was toxic, and then at home was toxic because, you know, my parents got in a relationship that I feel like they should never got in a relationship in the first place because neither one of them knew. You know what I mean?
Right.
They was just having babies, you know, and that was back in the time when I was young that they didn't have TVs. You know what I mean? So now imagine that.
Yes.
You know, so as we get into today, you know, you guys, and I look around, I was sharing this with Melissa earlier. Do you guys know what adverse childhood experiences is?
No.
Yeah.
Huh?
No.
Really? That's deep. So have you ever heard of the ACE study?
No.
I have.
Jasmine?
Yeah, I have. I think I'm like a 9 out of 10.
Right. So how long have you known that, Jasmine?
The first time I did that that test was in like 2018. It was in the fall of 2018. But who had me do it, they're like, okay, so this is what you score, and then I'm like, okay, so now what? And it just got left there. The only way I looked at it where it shifted my perspective is like, what are my children's score? You know, how am I going to do that different with my children? But that was something that I prayed about it, and that came to where I want to make that difference instead of repeating that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, my mom always yelled at me, so now I'm not going to yell at my kids, but really that was a lie. That's what happened. You know, so I didn't know where to know anything about it. Why? Because when they told me that and I did that test, and I'm like, okay, so now what? Yeah, I'm in recovery, so I know the things that I've been bringing up and working through. But so the only thing is that way I looked at it is I could shift that how I was going to mother my children to try to prevent not really prevent. I already caused a lot of hurt and pain, but like to try to make that difference for their score, you know. But I could only move forward from that day.
Alfred,
Yeah.
can you give a little bit of clarity so Vanita knows the context
Yeah.
and basis?
Yeah, so I have the ACE 35 important findings right here in front of me that I can share with you, Vanita, but it's actually more, and I'm going to send Melissa. You got a packet of information on hand that we can send her?
We can post it to the group. We can post it in the group files so that
Yeah.
way everybody has access to it. But maybe just an overview of like the you know.
So here you go. Here's the ACE study, 5 important findings, Vanita, and just a reminder, Jasmine. ACEs are surprisingly common. 64% of the 17,000 in the ACE study had one of 10 ACEs, 12% had 4 or more. ACEs are just one part of ACEs science. ACE study and other ACE surveys, it talks about how toxic stress from ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, damages children's brains. It damages our neurobiology. It damages our epidemiology, and how toxic stress from ACEs affects our short and long-term health, and how we pass ACEs from parent to child through our genes, and that's called epigenetics. And then how resilient research shows our brains are plastic and our bodies can heal, meaning that we can travel down new pathways in our head to create neuroplasticity. So what we got to do is, like, if you remember back in the days when they had record players and so the records played on certain grooves. So what happens is, in order for you to elicit neuroplasticity in your head, is you got to take off on a new path. And the only way you're going to be able to take off on that new path is like I was trying to get you to do, Jasmine, and that you asked about the polyvagal. So I sent you that about the superhighway, about your ventral vagus system with all those yoga exercises, and so that you can learn how to self-soothe and how to understand it, and you can actually pass along some of those coping skills and strategies to your children. That's how you can stop and bring up your vagal tone manually, so you can get out of those states of anxiety and depression. You know, because what it is that you're stimulating your neurobiology, is because it's your hormones, it's that secreting information to our reptilian brain. And so we have 3 brains, and it's the reptilian brain and the mammalian brain, and then our prefrontal cortex. And so what's really going on is that our mammalian brain and our reptilian brain are controlling our body. And so we didn't get taught that they had any control in that. And the one that controls our body is our autonomic nervous system. And inside the autonomic nervous system is the polyvagal, is where the polyvagal theory and the vagus nerve is at, Jasmine. And the vagus nerve sends 80% information from your body to your brain, and your brain only sends 20% from your brain back down to your heart brain. And so actually it's your heart brain that's in control. It's your 10th cranial nerve. And it's at the back of your head. It's at the back of your head. You can take it, and when you feel those 2 things in there, you can stick your fingers and you can rub it. That's where your ventral vagal starts at, and it comes down around your collarbone, and then it can bring it down through the front, and then right at the nape of your neck, there, right where your throat is at, and it goes straight down to your heart. And then from there, it runs down to our viscera. And our viscera, it runs down through our lungs, our kidneys, all the way down into our lower abdomen. And so that's our vagus nerve. And that's the one that sends information up to your heart brain. And then it sends information to your brain. So the brain is only really 20%, but your body sends more information to your brain. And that's the reason why our endocrine system, in charge of our hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, that's the ones that's compromising our body. So in actuality, the eyes that we use to see through is our first offense and our first defense when it comes down to emotional sobriety, you guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm still not totally, but what you see and how you interpret it makes sense. Quite interesting, actually.
So what I'm going to do is that superhighway to the vagus nerve and this whole thing about healing. I'm gonna have Melissa drop that into the chat box so you can grab it, and then you can
I'll
Google it.
I'll put it, Alfred, in the Facebook group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that way it's possible.
Go on.
Yeah.
I also kind of hear like breaking the chain, because our parents didn't know and their parents didn't know, and it keeps getting passed down. It's somewhat in the realm of what we're talking about.
So this is how you break the chain right now. You're updating your software, Benita. Okay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like iPhones and Android phones, you look up on your phone one day, it says, yo, you need a software update. You know what I mean? So that's all
Right.
I'm doing. So let's not get too heavy at this. I'm just giving you a software
Okay.
update. This is old school trying to give y'all some new school, okay?
Okay.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? Yeah, because
Uh-huh.
I'm in the fourth quarter now, so I've been standing around them corners, patting one foot and turning the next long enough to see what's going on. So I'm giving y'all the game, okay? So we can
All right.
reparent the children, you know what I mean? And the ones that are baby boomers like me can stop suffering, because the stuff that I'm using, you guys, is working, it's helping me, you know. And so because I'm so sick behind my aces and I'm looking for ways of healing, that's the reason why I got this information, you guys, because I actually use this stuff. This keeps me out of my head. So I'd use the breathing exercises. I'd use the gargling exercises. I use those massage balls that they have in this video that you saw, Jasmine. I use that core, they call it the core gorgeous ball. You take it and you can use it to lay on your side. You can rub it across your face. And then also too, I got a couple of handouts that I'll send Melissa that shows you exactly where your vagal nerve is at in your face. But if you go and you watch that video, she has an exercise where she takes and you put your fingers in your face and you can feel your vagus nerve in your face. It comes down through your face. Yeah, you're kind of in areas, it's by your temples, Benita, and it's right in your cheeks, and then it's right in between your eyebrows, you know, yeah. So you know a little bit about it, and because what happens is it gets you out of your sympathetic nervous frame. Your sympathetic is your fight and flight, and your parasympathetic is rest and digest. And so where your ventral vagal is at is where all this stuff is going on. We have a dorsal vagal and we have a ventral vagal. Ventral is the front and dorsal is the back. Dorsal is the bottom part of your body, and the ventral is from your heart up. Okay, so now you understand it, because see, before medicine and all this stuff came, you know what I mean, we were still living and existing. And so what we was doing was nature versus nurturing. And so we was doing more nurturing back then, just like you see the monkeys doing and stuff. Where, you know, when the world came in, what they started doing was splitting people up through their domestication, through money and all that kind of stuff. So when people stopped getting their appropriate nurturing from, especially from when people start moving in around you that don't look like you, and then say that you was black, you know, or indigenous, and you got kidnapped and you was enslaved in America, and then if you was a native, so to speak, and then they just, you know, you grew up in New York, and next thing you know, you out here in Canada or Alaska or something, man. And you say, wow, man, and so, you know, how that's in, so that's what's going on. They just told you it's epigenetics. So it's in you to live and thrive and survive in a different place, off a different food, off a different nutrition, off of your own doctors, knowing your own family genealogy. You don't have to go to ancestry.com, you know what I mean? And none of this stuff. So this book, Emotional Sobriety by Tion Dayton, the ACE study, the polyvagal approach, the vagus nerve, and all this stuff, you guys, it's science. You know what I mean? When you go to buy a new car, you go buy the new car because you like the science, right? You like what the car do. Am I right or wrong?
The new tricks and things, yeah.
Right. So guess what? We got the best car that you can go get. We got a car better than a Rolls Royce. But guess what they didn't do? They didn't give us our Carfax. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, we never knew what the cars were like beforehand. And then we didn't even know what was underneath the hood. They gave us a car. They didn't give us the Carfax, and they didn't give us the book on how to drive the car, how to maintain the car. So we don't know what none of these lights and stuff. You know what I mean? You didn't got people that had cars and lights blinking, and somebody else getting the car and said, man, what's going on? Man, you got the light blinking, man. I don't know what that is. That just been with the car, man. Well, man, you need some oil, man. You know what I mean? You need some transmission fluid. You know, you need some gas or something. So all they did was they said, okay, all these black, brown, and indigenous people, we're going to take the software app out of their program. So basically, reason why we self-medicate, because our parents didn't know that they needed to self-regulate us and attach us and stuff and calm us down and stuff. You know what I mean? They didn't know that we was picking up lessons from Ray Pookie and Shaniqua from the white culture. You understand what I'm saying? Or some people who didn't have any other type of meaning or standards. And so now that we're seeing this in this ACE study, what I'm trying to get you guys to understand is we've been part of the reason, part of the cash crop. The war on America has been a war on us. We've been funding all their programs and stuff by allowing them to send social workers and build buildings and house us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's almost like when you get a new phone, you're so used to doing the things that you already know on your old phone, and then you get a new one. It's like, oh God, a foreign man, kind of like, how do I make this work, and what's this here for?
Right. So as we wander down back to getting focused on our work here in chapter 1, what is emotional sobriety? Down at the bottom of page 2, it says finding our feeling retrostat. Emotional sobriety is about finding and maintaining our emotional equilibrium and feeling retrostat, the one that helps us to adjust the intensity of our emotional responses to life. And so the emotional responses to life, you guys, are neurobiological responses. I see that got you stuck. So Jasmine.
Yeah.
What did you understand what I said with our emotional responses to life are actually neurobiological? Did that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So when I say neurobiological, just for anybody that's listening, I'm talking about adrenaline and cortisol. When you're in fight or flight, remember we have two sides to our nervous system. One is the parasympathetic, that's fight or flight, and the other is the parasympathetic, and that's rest and digest. And then that's also where the other polyvagal and where the vagus nerve travels at is in our parasympathetic. And so it manages the ventral vagal, which is social engagement and communication, and the dorsal vagal. And that's actually where you wind up in depression. So, and then also too, the dorsal vagal is a part of freeze. And so that's freeze means you're disassociated. So there's some things that you might be able to stay focused on, but other things you just kind of rotely do them or routinely do them without even much thought into doing it. Be actually disassociated. You're not as alert and aware as you would like to be. That's that freeze state. That's like when you faint, when you faint, or feign death. And so possums do that all the time, you know what I mean? They just like play possum, and so sometimes we've been in the middle of our game, you know what I mean? And somebody's flipping out on us, you know what I mean? And we just disassociate on them, you know what I mean? We know what we're doing, but we just go into that possum, or I don't even hear you, dude. I'm gonna put you on never mind status. You dig what I'm saying? So you guys, we need to listen to this. And so this is part of the ACE study. It says that we're not doomed. Our brains are plastic. Our bodies want to heal. To reduce stress hormones in our bodies and brains, we can meditate, exercise, sleep, and eat well, have safe relationships, live and work in safety, ask for help when we need it. We can build resilient families. Educating parents about their own ACEs helps them understand their lives and motivates them to become healthy parents to prevent passing their ACEs on to their kids. For resilient families, and so there's a program for this, Vanita, so that it can help you with your family, and it can help anybody here with their families. And so for resilient families, we need healthy organizations. There's some healthy organizations out there, healthy systems, and healthy communities. And the frontier of resilient research lies in creating communities and systems that prevent childhood adversity, stop traumatizing already traumatized people, and build resilience. Otherwise, to stop re-traumatizing people. So that's another thing for this book study here. Many people, organizations, and communities are integrating trauma-informed and resilience-building practices based on ACEs science, including pediatricians, schools, juvenile detention facilities, businesses, social services, people in the faith-based community, and health clinics. So what you guys really want to do is ask them if you really want to go someplace that's going to respect you and understand you. Find out if they're integrating trauma-informed care or resilience building practices in their curriculum, in what they do. You should also look for trauma-informed practice places and trauma-informed care places, and then look at its guiding principles. And the first one is safety. And so if it's not safe, if you can't go in there and speak what you need to speak, and they're not looking you directly in the eyes and speaking to you in a manner that you're used to, then you know that you're not in the right place, because some of us have to, in our first part of our journey, some of us has to get on medication management, in order to get there. And so sometimes when you go into some of these places, they be looking at you and they think you loaded or something, but they don't know that you just had an adjustment or something, or they don't even know that you just getting onto the program and you trying to adjust and function, you know what I mean? And so you're still trying to find your level, you know what I'm saying? So,
Alfred, can you hold up or share where you were reading that from? That was the paper, not the book that you were just reading from?
I'm getting ready to.
No, so that we know where it's coming from.
ACE is too high.
And then the title of it?
It's the ACE study, 5 important findings.
Okay, perfect. So folks that are watching or with us right now, I'll post that as well, link to it in the group so that you can review.
It's connected with the 3 realms of ACEs.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because I saw Vanita looking at her book when you were reading it. I didn't want her to think that.
Yeah, okay.
From there.
I didn't catch that one, Vanita. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah.
So it is in the book what you're saying. Okay.
I'll post it in the Facebook group so that you have access to that document as well. Yeah.
So it says here that emotional sobriety is tied up in our ability to self-regulate and to bring ourselves into and maintain our balance. So that's the reason why I brought this up about the hormones, you guys, and that how toxic stress ACEs damages children's brains and their neurobiology. So actually our neurobiology has been damaged because of the cortisol our mothers secreted upon us when we was in our mother's wombs, and especially in that 3rd trimester, that last trimester, when the baby can hear everything that's going on in the house, you know what I mean? And whatever the mom eat or drink, that's going into the baby. If she gets slapped upside the head by the dad, or get talked crazy to by Ray, Pookie, and Shaniqua, all that stuff gets down into the baby. She go to the dollar store, go to Walmart, and you got to cuss one of them, you know what I mean? All that you need to start understanding, that's epigenetics. And so, no matter what, the baby gonna come out doing something that you ain't gonna like, but you need to be able to understand that you need to love your child unconditionally like you want to be loved. And so part of the thing about emotional sobriety is not only learning about your own emotions, but in learning about the emotions of others who would be around you to be talking about their love and care. Now all of a sudden, because your mom didn't know what love is, and every man that you ran into ain't never been able to tell you a good definition, now you're getting to know a little bit more about how to love yourself so that you know what love looks like when they come around, you know what I mean? So we don't have to keep being cheap no more, you know what I mean? So, this book, you guys, is very important in learning how we are to live and understanding how we are to live. And so the basic thing by them not explaining to actually it's our biology, it's those fluids that causes our emotions. And so in actuality, we're not in charge of our emotions. And so they send us into this therapy and stuff, telling us that we need to go and have treatment. But in actuality, you can't treat what's wrong with you in the body through conversation. And so they have a new modality of care called somatic therapy, somatic experiencing. And that's because it's about the mind, body, and brain. And so when you go to these other programs, they want to talk to you about cognitive behavioral therapy. the last brain that was created was our prefrontal cortex, and that didn't start to develop to the age of 12. It wasn't fully developed until the age of 25. So you guys, that's the reason why you need to come in and find out about emotional sobriety and find out all the life that's inside you and how it forms and operates. And so it says, but how do we achieve this living in balance? Is it something we can train? Is it something we can train ourselves to do? If we didn't learn adequate skills of self-regulation in childhood, can we learn them in adulthood? And how do we fall in and out of balance? Are you guys starting to pick up a little bit on this?
Well, in terms of the self-regulating, that's what I have control over. I don't have control of, regular.
Self-regulating.
Thank you. That's my part. And as long as I'm doing that, then other people, I can deal with other people on that level too, or notice when they're not.
So I want to, do you take suggestions, Benita?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Sure. I want you to hold that thought, what you just said.
Okay.
Because you have more control with your self-regulation than you know that you have control with. And it's not about you self-regulating your emotions as what you know about the terms emotions as in feelings and stuff of that nature. The emotions that you need to learn about and how to manage are the sensations that happen, especially when they cross over your eyesight. So we have 5 senses, and really in those 5 senses, you're going to get sensations through those 5 senses that's going to cause you to form an opinion. And then that's how your emotions get formed. Okay, but so that's your cognition of emotions. But
Okay.
your body has got a thing called the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is actually your GPS, your homeland security. It has neuroception in it. And so with that neuroception, it can look in around people around you and find out if you're safe. See, that's the thing that was really honed in. That's the thing that kept us alive during evolution, was our autonomic nervous system. That's the part that keeps us breathing every day and our heart beating. Okay?
Okay.
So this is just an education, you guys, so we can find out. So it says science now can describe in a comprehensive detail just what goes on in the body when we experience emotions, or to take it one step further, how our body works with our mind to experience, process, and create our emotional world. Science can, because when they say create our emotional world, because your emotional world and my emotional world is 2 different things, and it's different than Melissa's or Jasmine's, because we see in life through 4 different experiences. In 4 different time periods, in 4 different time frames, in 4 different days, in 4 different months, in 4 different years, and in 4 different skins. You know what I mean? With 4 different parents. Sets of parents. You follow what I'm saying? So really listen to this and take this to heed before we move further in this. It says science can also describe in some detail what happens to us physically and emotionally, and when we fell out of balance. So we need to be open to this stuff, and we also need to be focusing in on this stuff. You know what I mean? This is not something that you can bat your eyes over, because it says science. It didn't say Ray, Pookie, and Shaniqua. It says science. Science is the elephant in the room with emotional sobriety, you guys. And so emotions occur in the body as well in the mind. And when we're scared, for example, we tense up. And so when we're scared, we go into our sympathetic. We go to fight and flight. Okay? And so who can't relate to this? Maybe we're in the 4th grade and the teacher puts us on the spot, or we don't even have to go to 4th grade. You know what I mean? Maybe it was last week somebody put you on the spot and confronted you about some of your old behavior. You know what I mean? It could be even your kid that confronted you about your old behavior. The first thing you want to do is go hit the gas, you know what I mean? And go to fight or flight. And so Your body does that automatically. Your cognition had nothing to do with that, you know, because your body knows the score. Your body already knows what you're going to think about that. So it already tense up and get ready to run away, especially if you've been addicted, because you've been running, man, all your life, right?
Right.
And so then that's a neurochemical exchange there. And then so then it says, well, maybe, you know, it's time to slow down. Well, then that's the parasympathetic. That's a whole nother chemical. That's GABA. That's a whole different thing. You know, that's the oxytocins. That's the love formula over that side where the rest and digest is at, you guys. So it says science can also describe in detail what happens to us physically and emotionally when we fall out of balance. And so that happened to me. That's the reason why my autoimmune system is on tilt right now. And that's the reason why how I got fibromyalgia and liver cancer and all that stuff. So the only reason why I'm alive now is because I looked into science to try to figure it out, you guys. I got into the books and I did more and more research. And so the ACE study, it has right here, and I have some of the outcomes for the ACE study right here on my desk. And it says right here, and this is the ACE childhood experiences. This is a fact sheet here. And it also has the ACE questionnaire on it. But if I had known this when this came out in 1997, it says ACEs increase risk for mental illness, major causes of death, and more. ACEs increase risk for death in adults, including smoking, alcohol abuse, 7 times greater risk of abusing alcohol, use of illicit drugs, 10 times more, suicide attempts, 12 times more, promiscuity, obesity, physical inactivity. ACEs also increase risk for chronic illness, cancer, fractures, lung, heart, thyroid, and autoimmune disorders, ADHD and behavioral problems in kids, premature birth, greater challenges, difficulty in parenting, anxiety, depression, PTSD, self-harm, suicide, low life satisfaction, poor academic achievement, unintended pregnancy and paternity, intimate partner violence, increased numbers of marriages, injuries, intentional or not, motor accidents. I won that one. Shootings. You know, I've never been shot, but I've been pistol whipped. I've been stabbed, and criminality. And so it also says that chronic illness statistics and facts is that 63% of the population has 1 ACE and 12.5 has 4.
Alfred, can you clarify for those people listening that don't know what ACEs are themselves, like what it's referring to, adverse childhood experiences, what those can be or manifest as?
So the adverse childhood experience studies show that trauma in childhood increases risk for chronic disease. Is that the part that you want me to talk about?
Well, like, and Jasmine, you know, was referring to the score before and like the original 10, so that there's an understanding of what's connected to those outcomes that you're saying, and then the 10 things that they looked at back in 97 when they were studying it. So the 3 areas were abuse, household dysfunction, you know, so they looked at 10 different experiences that you could have in childhood. So
the ACE questionnaire asks about exposure to 10 specific types of trauma from 0 to 18 years of age. Original questions were drawn from areas in public health for which national programs were being developed in the 1990s. Other types of trauma also increase risks like unsafe neighborhoods. So it's 10 questions here. Is that the question that you want me to go over? Or because it's on physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, loss of a parent from divorce or separation, violent treatment of a mother, member of the household with mental illness, or another member of the household, jail, or another member of the household with substance abuse.
So from that list, is that the ACEs that you're reading off?
Yeah, that's the ACEs. So I can actually tell you what the questions are. Or
well, and I think what we can do is we can post the link that folks can go and kind of have an idea of like what your score is that Jasmine had talked about, like that she had gotten. And like Alfred's mentioned a couple of times, the 3 realms of ACEs. Can you describe a little bit more about that as well, Alfred, that it's not just those childhood experiences, but it's also the community environments?
And the 3 realms of ACEs are are environment, household, and community. Hold on one second.
And I'll put those links as well for
Yeah,
everyone to.
Thank you.
yeah.
But just, I wanted to make sure that everyone understands that it doesn't mean that it's your destiny with what happened to you as a child. It doesn't mean that those outcomes are like a guarantee for anyone. It doesn't mean that if you experience X number of ACEs, XYZ thing will happen. It just means that the likelihood of health risk outcomes increases. There you go.
So here it is, the 3 realms of ACEs. Adverse childhood and community experiences, ACEs, can occur in the household, the community, or in the environment and cause toxic stress. Left unaddressed, toxic stress from ACEs harms children and families, organizations, systems, and communities, and reduces the ability of individuals and entities to respond to stressful events with resiliency. Research has shown that there are many ways to reduce and heal from toxic stress and build healthy and caring communities. And so, number one, the household is one of the communities that we're discussing here. And so, if the household has an incarcerated family member, divorce, has experienced any of these, homelessness, parental illness, mental illness, physical and emotional neglect, bullying, domestic violence, alcoholism and drug abuse, emotional and sexual abuse, or maternal depression, that's caused a household environmental experience of adverse childhood experiences. Here's another one. If you live in a community that you've experienced discrimination, substandard schools, historical trauma, violence, lack of social capital and mobility, structural racism, poor water and air quality, lack of jobs, food scarcity, substandard wages, poverty, poor housing, quality and affordability, that's the community environmental experience. And then the environment, if you're living in an environment where you're experiencing climate crisis, record heat and droughts, wildfires and smoke, record storms and flooding and mudslides, tornadoes and hurricanes, natural disasters, volcano eruptions and tsunamis, earthquakes, pandemics, and the sea level rise, then you have an environmental ACE, adverse childhood experiences. And so all these impact your childhood development in the ways of your cognition, your physical health, your emotions, your relationships, your mental health, your behavior, and brain development. I don't like using that term mental health, you guys. I'd really like to take that term out and call that health and wellness, because we don't have mental health. We have a lack of information. We didn't get the appropriate information during our childhood, during our adverse childhood experiences. So it talks about cognition, impaired readiness to learn, difficult problem solving, language delays, problems with concentration and poor achievement. So you can talk that one up to the community. And then your physical health, your sleep disorders, eating disorders, poor immune system and functioning, and cardiovascular disease and shorter lifespan. That came through your epigenetics with your parents. You got all that through your DNA. And then emotions, difficult controlling emotions, trouble recognizing emotion, limited coping skills, increased sensitivity to stress, shame and guilt, excessive worry, hopelessness, feelings of helplessness, lack of self-efficacy. That's their emotions. And the reason why you're here is because we didn't get the basic information, that should have been given out in the schools. And that's the reason why the schools are substandard, And so in actuality, we're their cash crop because of all these things that we didn't get in our household, the environment, and the community. Then we've rebelled. And so with rebellion, they've given us these lackluster services, and the services in the community don't match it with the services that you need in the environment or the services that you need within your household. And they built the backs of our community off of the enslavement of Black people. So that should tell you right there that we also need to get acknowledgement for the reparations that needs to come through that, not only through the people of color, but through the Native American population too, for what they paid for New York, because that's the stuff that caused their brain development problems. Smaller brain size, because they don't value us. less efficient processing because they didn't even told us how to update our software, impaired stress response, changes in gene expression. And then so the community and the household, you know, and the environment caused the behavior, poor self-regulation. You know, you got people riding by in all these shiny cars, and the only reason why they got the shiny cars because they was privileged, you know. And then you got social withdrawal. Of course you got social withdrawal. You ain't had no money, and your parents ain't had no money, and never land, you know. And then you have aggression, poor impulse control, risk-taking, illegal activity, sexual acting out, adolescent pregnancy, drug and alcohol misuse. The behavior is there because the information wasn't there in the beginning, because we wasn't treated equal, you know. And then they talked about mental health. That is not mental health. That's the outcome when you don't have a parity of information going around. We was all born here. We got all the same physiology, but so who's left and how come and why? And so when they talk about Black Lives Matter, you know what I mean? All lives matter, but the Black lives really matter because they carry the brunt of all this stuff. And you have to walk around every day and you have to try to see through all these layers of light in this kaleidoscope called the world in order to find out who we are as a people today. So that's misconstrued our relationships, which is the reason why we have attachment problems and disorders inside of our own families, poor understanding of social interactions, because we was told that we weren't supposed to interact with anything. And then they have it in the Constitution that say we're 5/8, you know. We didn't start to be able to vote until 1965. You know, 1968, we couldn't even live, a man and a woman, if they was on welfare, they couldn't even live together. So they've been breaking up the communities of color for a long time. We even know now that not one single individual can live off of one income, you know, and so it's difficulty forming relationships with peers. So that even makes you having problems of having a relationship with Ray Pookie and Shaniqua. You know, now that you tell them that you don't want to use dope no more, then they want, oh, you better than us now. They want to shame you and make you feel guilty about it. You know what I mean? You know, they never liked you anyway. You know what I mean? And problems in romantic relationships, because the only one we ever had a real romantic relationship was with a pipe or a spoon or a bottle. You know what I mean? And intergenerational cycles of abuse and neglect, you know, because we couldn't even feel the love from our parents because the environment, the household, and the community was so strenuous on them that all they was trying to do was self-medicate. We don't know what they was operating with, you know what I mean? They was our parents. And so, you know, we couldn't even have a good relationship with them. And so, you know, this is all, we all messed up because of a lack of parity about information. You guys, just real simple. And so what I'm trying to provide here during this emotional sobriety is a format and a way so we can break those chains that bind us. What I'm talking about, those epigenetic chains that bind us, because now is the time to be more transparent with your kids and let them know that we are family. You know what I mean? Ain't no big me and little you, that we're down for this together. And so let's work as a team, you know. And so when you start loving them from the space and the place that they're at, they'll start loving you from the space and the place that you're at, you know, which is non-judgmental. And when you turn to them and you tell them about their ancestry, and that's where you come in. That's where you got to fill it in. You know, you got to research the books and tell them about their ancestry. That's the reason why I give you guys this stuff. I tell you about the polyvagal and all that stuff so you guys can know how the information goes, that we can heal ourselves. We don't need no doctor that run around in a white coat, you know, and look down at you, you know what I mean? And don't really care about you, you know what I mean? If that was a matter, they'd donate some of their money to you because they know that you can't, they know that you can't even afford them, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And your people ain't been used to seeing doctors. So, you know, as we move on through this, it says emotions occur in the body as well as in the mind. And when we're scared, for example, we tense up. Who can relate to this? And so it talks about the 4th grade. But what I was talking about was a parasympathetic, our palms sweat, our hearts beat fast, we tense up and sit overly alert in our chair. How many times have you actually been doing that and ain't nobody been around? Have you just caught yourself how you've been seating yourself? You guys just don't understand. So because I have an autoimmune disorder and fibromyalgia and I have chronic fatigue, I have to watch the sensations in my body to be careful that I'm not burning up unnecessary energy because I'm in a parasympathetic state and I need to try to get my butt back into my parasympathetic to the rest and digest so I can be cool and calm and eat and sit in the back of the chair. Notice how you be sitting sometimes. You be sitting, and the chair ain't even got a back to it, and you sitting all on the edge of the chair. You know what I mean? You don't even know how to relax. And you look at yourself and start measuring yourself. That's what this says, finding our feet in retrospect. That's what it's all about. See how you operate around here, and then you know why you angry all the time, or something makes you snap with a kid, because you're in la-la land. You know what I mean? You know, and so that's the reason why they say that you need to meditate and do mindfulness awareness, and so that you can walk in mindfulness awareness, and so you can be in discernment all the time. Stop looking at things through your eyes through 1970 or 1990 or 2000, or through some event that was ugly or something, man. Stay out of that. You have to maintain your curiosity. That's the reason why I'm giving you these books, and I'm saying all these different things to you, so that I can tweak your curiosity. You know what I mean? This is a new channel. It's called YouTube. Let's put you on the tube. You know what I mean? Instead of watching MSNBC, you know what I mean? And Fox News, and letting all them people speak into your life. You know, trying to create your own channel so we can start a channel. That's what the League of Extraordinary People is all about. We're all trauma survivors, and a lot of us are complex post-traumatic stress disorders. And so it's stress, and it's post, and it's complex, and ACEs is a part of it, and the 3 realms of ACEs, and all the impacts of child trauma that I spoke to you today. I don't know if this is hitting you guys where we need to hit, but I kind of want to create a foundation for us moving forward in this, because science is the most important thing that's really not expounded on here, because I don't want you guys to get to thinking that this is about some type of feeling. It's more than a feeling. And it's not a feeling. And so feelings come from sensations. You actually determine whether it's a feeling of anxiety or a feeling of depression, but you have to learn how to start self-regulating yourself, because our parents didn't allow us to learn that, because they didn't even know that was needed to be taught in the first place. Wow, we're coming to a close here. Any questions?
Yeah, so self-regulating, you have to recognize it at first to begin to, regulate it. And like keep everything in moderation.
So that's a good way for you to start a journal, Benita. So you can start recognizing your states. Are you in fight or flight, or are you in rest and digest?
Okay.
Okay, so that's just something that we'll get onto on the next. But what you need to do is ask questions, and I'll send you the appropriate material,
Okay.
so that you can learn right with the rest of us. And when you read when she sends you that super highway about the vagus nerve, and you read that and put that on your computer and watch those exercises and learn how to do that, so when you start getting yourself into those states of tenseness and stuff, you know how to apply some exercises to your face, gargling, singing, humming, chewing gum. It's the vibrations, Jasmine, that actually cause movement. We're actually communicate through electricity and vibrations, and so they have they got a mechanical vagal nerve stimulator, and it's about vibrations. But we'll get into that later on. But look at that link, and you'll get some exercise on how to calm yourself down. It'll show you how to get this gorgeous ball that we got, and the 2 other balls. Melissa, are you still around?
Yeah, I'm here. I posted those links, y'all, in the group, the one to the 3 realms of ACEs and the super highway to health. And then I also posted a video. It's called an ACEs primer, and it kind of has a visual that goes along with a lot of those facts that Alfred was talking about from the original ACEs study. It's like 4.5, 5 minutes long, but it just gives you an overview of kind of all of those things. There you go.
Thank you.
Here's the gorgeous ball. And then here are the 2 massage balls that I use. When you watch this super highway, they're going to show you some balls that look like this. But she has another type of ball, but these are the balls that I use for massage. And I use it for my vagal, to increase my vagal tone manually. So this is about this link that I'm sending you is about how you guys can increase your vagal tone manually. Benita, Jasmine.
Right. So, and that's that one that's in the group. So everybody can access the link to that easily through there. And then we'll also be posting the recording. So if you want to go back and listen to anything, you'll be able to. And the other thing I was going to mention is back in August, Alfred did a health and wellness event that was about adverse childhood experiences in the Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color. And that is a really, really good kind of goes in depth and with Alfred's experiences woven through it, that is a good resource. So I'll post that link in the group as well. It's about an hour and a half long, I think, but very well worth it to have that background information.
And before we close, you guys, I really want to restate something to you, to Jasmine and you, Vanita. This is not a closed group. Anybody that you know in the community that you think would benefit from this group, you guys, have them join this group. This is a self-help group, you know, and I focus on doing this. And so I really would like to get this message to as many people as possible so that we can stop people from suffering, because the majority of people that died from COVID, you guys, they have one thing in common that I found out through my research, and that all of them had high ACE scores. And so if you want to learn more about how to get your nutrition up, I can give you the full meal deal here, because this is something that I fight with daily, and that's to maintain my resiliency to the COVID-19 virus, because I have fibromyalgia, and I got liver cancer and chronic fatigue, irritable bowel syndrome, and something else I can't think of it now. I have to keep my immune system at top flight. So I juice, I take supplements. I'm on the cutting edge of nutrition, science, everything. And so there's a lot of people out there who are suffering now, a lot of baby boomers that would probably benefit from learning this information about how their neurobiology, because I did like you did, Jasmine, when they talked about the continuum of care program. The cancer doctor didn't have one. So I created it, and out of that came the League of Extraordinary People and my strive for resiliency. So
everyone's got those links in the group that you can check out. And like Alfred said, ask questions in there. You know, if you read a line in the article and you're like, what the heck does this mean? You know, copy and paste it and post in there and say, hey, what does this mean? Right? Like, you can feel free to use that platform, that group as a resource, you know, to expand your learning and your healing as we go through this.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great week. Welcoming in the new year in a few days.
Yes. Is it every 4 Mondays? Is that it?
The last Monday of every month. Yeah. The last Monday.
The last, okay, I got confused.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. And yeah, happy holidays to you both.
Okay.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
All right.